Hey everybody, Jason Kissel here, tech liaison for Southwestern City Schools. We're gonna jump into Jamboard, and then second half of this, another video I'll put out will be Google Forms and how to not just make a multiple choice Google form, but how to do some other things, maybe link to some different things and reteach for kids or something like that. So first is going to be Jamboard. We're going to just do a basic overview of what Jamboard is, where you can find it, how you can get to it, all those fun things. And then I'm going to show you mainly just some examples that I found mostly on Twitter, and then a couple that I've created myself, just to give you kind of some ideas on how you can use Jamboard to increase some engagement. I know super tough right now, but you always have to think, like, even if I'm not going to use this idea next week, maybe in a year this idea will make a lot of sense to me, or maybe once the pandemic is over, this tool could be really cool to use in class, like on the projector or something like that. So always think long term when you're learning something new. Don't just think, how am I going to use this to get by for the next week, even though maybe that's what we want to think. So this is what Jamboard looks like. How I got to it, I just open up a new tab and I type jam.new, and it just takes me right to that page right there, right? Alternatively, if you're on the Google homepage or on any Google app and you click on the waffle, as people call it, app launcher, fancy name for it, you should find Jamboard there. If you're stuck in your drive for some reason, notice how I still type that in, even though I could have clicked on that icon. And I click new, and I click more. Jamboard should be down there, right? Your jams live in your Google Drive just like a doc or slide or sheet. So you can organize them appropriately. You share them the exact same way as well. So that can be good, just so you kind of get a framing of what a jam really is. It's basically a Google slide without all the stuff that you can do in Google Slides. So I'll talk about the comparison of those two a little bit as I give some examples, right? So I'm going to go back to my jam. The first thing I want to do is give it a title. So I'm just going to give this a title. Horrible title. Doesn't matter really for me. All right, and then the one thing I love about Jamboard over Google Slides is there aren't menu bars really for you to do a lot of stuff. It's pretty obvious that really this is where you're going to live if you're on a jam. So if I share this with students, I like it because there's only this many options. Actually, they recently just added text box. Before that, there were only sticky notes, and that was the only way you could add text in. So they're adding a little bit to make it a little bit more functional, but it's still very simple. And it's a Google product, right? It's a Google app. So I also like it, instead of going to another site, I'm going to something within Google, so I can find it in my drive easy. I can share it in Classroom easy, make a copy for each student if I need to, right? All right, so the first thing is you probably want to put a background out, unless you're going to just like write text and have kids kind of fill out something in there. It used to only be these select backgrounds. That was it. And now you can actually add your own image as background, which is clutch. So let's say you have some diagram, some graphic organizer, a graph, any picture that you want kids to annotate on top of in your class. Before, you would just have to add that as an image and hope they didn't move it around, right? But now you can add it as a background, share it with them, and then the only way that they would be able to change that is if they came back in here and changed the background, which would change the entire project, right? So hopefully they wouldn't do that. One thing to just keep aware of when you're doing a Jamboard, and as I'm talking about this stuff, currently, unless this has changed, this was true a month ago, and I haven't seen any updates, there can only be 20 different frames on a jam. So you see how I have 2 right now. I'm on the first of 2. Okay, so there's going to be 20. That's a big one. And then the second big one is only 20 students at a time can be editing a jam. So it's really popular idea to make a slide for each kid and let them edit it, right? Each kid edits their own slide. Well, if you have 30 students in your class and they're all trying to get onto the same one, that's not going to work because, well, first, you're not going to be able to make 30 frames, and second, only 20 people can edit at the same time. I don't see those limits staying forever, but that's just what it is right now. So The workaround is to create the exact same thing twice and let half the students go into one link, half the students go into the other. Depending on who you teach, I understand that's not a reality. I get it, right? But that's the workaround that people have kind of come up with right now. Okay, so let's just say for me, I'm just going to put some dots on there, and I was going to make some shapes, right? And I just click on this twice, and it gives me some extra shapes or not. There we go. I don't know why that was weird. So I can just kind of make some shapes here. I can put some text in those if I would like. It works very similar to slides. I don't think you need to watch me just click around here. This is a laser pointer, so if I am just trying to show people something, if I click and hold, it kind of is like disappearing ink, right? So just so you have that kind of in your repertoire if you're sharing something with people on Jamboard. And then you always want to kind of go back to the select tool if you're going to delete or rotate or make stuff bigger, so you can rotate here. This is brand new as well, that you can change the order of it. It used to be that if you put something on first and you couldn't move it forward or backward, so it's kind of nice. They just added this bring to front, bring to back, which is really great, right? Okay, the sticky notes are cool. I'll share, hopefully I'll have an example. If not, I'll go through it. Of assigning different color sticky notes, different roles, and putting kids' names on those. So the sticky notes can be really helpful if you're trying to get them to demonstrate a certain idea. And then, of course, the pen is also very cool. Now, I will tell you, if they have the Jamboard app on their phone, if students or teachers have a Jamboard app on their phone or on a tablet, it does have a few extra features, but let's just say this is the Chromebook version. I try to teach everything I do off of a Chromebook, just so I'm not saying like, well, look what I can do, but other people can't do it, right? So that's kind of like the nuts and bolts of what Jamboard is. There is no version history, so if you've used that in the past with like a Google Doc or a slide, you can go back and look at each time somebody's edited it and what they edited. You can't do that currently on a Jamboard. There's not really any menus like that. There's only this little 3 dots here. And all you can really do is just save it and make a copy of it. That's it. All right. So if you wanted to know like which student is typing where on a jam, which is it's a pretty popular idea to share it among small groups or things, they either need to label it with their name or you need to share it to each individual kiddo, right? So right now, I don't know if I've sold you on it, but let's just talk about why this might be better than Google Slides. If you have something on there and you want them to write on top of it, I'm not sure that giving them just a Google slide makes a lot of sense, right? They need to use text boxes and things like that. So even if I just want them to use this tool with their mouse and they circle things or underline things, right, they can do that easier on this tool than they could on a Google slide. All right. The other thing is it's just Google Slides really busy, and this is not busy. So there's just a lot of things you can click on a Google slide, and I like that you can't really see all the frames on the side. Like this is the default view that everybody sees. Okay. If you do want to see all your frames, you can click right here, expand frame bar. Okay. And then you can also, there's a couple more options in here. You can make a copy of one you already have. You can delete it, and then you can add in frames either before, in the middle, or after, right? Okay, and then the last little thing I want to show you before I give you a lot of examples here. All right, close that back out. If you're in your Google Meet, you can also just create a jam straight from there, right? So this option right here, you go down to the 3 dots in the bottom right, you click open a jam. It'll either let you open one from Drive or create a new one. If you create a new one, or if you open a one from Drive, it's going to give you the opportunity to share with the people who are currently present in your Google Meet. So it's not like all the people that you think should be there or all the people that have planned to be there. It's all the people that are currently present. It pulls that list, and then it lets you share either view access, which just lets them see it, right, or editing access, which lets them use these tools. So, you just think about how you want to do it. Lastly, before I said that was the last thing, so I kind of lied. This right here is really confusing to some people. Open on a Jamboard. So Google also has this physical board called, similar to like a smart board or a new line panel, called a Jamboard. They are crazy expensive. We don't own any of them in our district. So you're just not going to click on that. You get extra features if you have the Jamboard, right? That was like the whole thing. And that's why probably this software hasn't taken off as much as I would think it should. But a lot of people probably just thought it was only available if you had the physical tool, the Jamboard. And it's fairly new anyways. Jamboard hasn't been around for 5 years or something like that. All right, so that's kind of the lay of the land of Jamboard. Let me show you some examples. So the first one would be, I'm actually going to go backwards in my tabs. Okay, so manipulative stacks. So I have a bunch of fraction bars here. I just pulled this from, just from a website. I just took a screen grab of it. And then I wanted to make movable fraction bars for each one of this. Well, if you see here, if I copy this, I'm just going to hit Control C and paste it, hit Control V. There's nowhere for me to really like crop this or change it. Like I can rotate it. I can make it smaller, but see how the image that I bring in is just the image. So that's kind of an important distinction that you make here in Jamboard, that I can't really do anything with this like I thought I wanted to. Like originally I wanted to crop out each one of these. And what I ended up doing is using a screenshot tool, right? So I did the screenshot trick, Control Shift, and then the switcher button at the top of my Chromebook, and then I just highlighted around each one. It gives you the option to copy that to the clipboard. Well, let's just do it. All right. So here, so here's what I ended up doing. I had this image still. I hit Control Shift and the switcher button, which is like the rectangle with the two lines to the right of it, that button at the top. And then I just tried to grab just the whole bar right there, and see how it says copy to the clipboard. I just do that, which means like really what that's doing for me is Control C, and then I can just Control V, and now I've got just the bar, right? So then I just did that a bunch of times, and now I've got a bunch of bars, right? The important thing for something like this, like the ratio, the actual size of the bars really matters, right? Like if your 1/4 bar is this big and then you're trying to line it up with the 1/2 bar, that doesn't quite make sense, right? So the undo button is quite useful if you accidentally drag one of those, right? But I like this because it's really easy to just kind of drag these around. And then if I needed to for students, I just hit Control C, Control V, make a bunch of them and stack them all together. Okay, oops, see how I just resize that one? All right, so it takes a bit of time. Like I'm not gonna act like that's like an instant, but it's a nice way to make a stack of manipulatives so they can keep dragging them out if they need to, right? So if I was trying to demonstrate 1/6, 3, 1/6, and 1/2 is the same, is it perfect? No. Could it be useful? Maybe, right? I don't know if it could be useful, but I think it could be. Like I think having manipulative stacks is a really helpful tool. I've seen it. I'm a math teacher, right? So I apologize. A lot of my examples end up being math related because that's just how my brain is wired in my teacher world, right? Like I haven't taught other subjects, so I don't think often of other subjects and how to use them. So I apologize. But I've seen it with order of operations. I've seen it with different math symbols, greater thans and less thans. Just with straight up numbers, right? Like just with digits, you can put those and move them around. So lots of different ways to create manipulative stacks. Let's see. I don't even remember. I thought I only had 2 slides. So I'm really curious what this third frame is here. Oh, it's just my stacks, right? So this is just me messing around, making a bunch of these stacks. And they're not going to look perfect, but I don't take I take a lot of time to make things look pretty nice for students, but I'm not going to like agonize over the fact that you can tell there's more than one there. Like that's fine for me. They can click and drag these out and kind of rearrange them how they need to, and that will be good enough, right? So that's my first example, manipulative stacks. What you could do on behind that. So let me give you a quick idea here. I'm going to actually just show you. So I'm going to type out some stuff here. So If you notice, there's not again, like it's just bare bones. I like that though. Phone's ringing. Sorry about that. So let's see here. I'm going to say show, maybe I'm not. Show me 3 representations for the decimal 0.75. All right. So maybe this is the prompt I want to give my students. Now I'm going to think about where I want those manipulatives, right? I wanted the manipulatives to be over here. So I'm actually going to slide this over. And then I'm just going to fancy it up a bit, right? I'm going to do that. I'm going to maybe change the color. Wow, so fancy. I'm actually going to even add in a box here for my directions. Look at me go, right? All right, and see, remember the order part used to be I just was hosed and I had to start over with the text, but now I can actually send it to the back, which is great. That's how all these tools should work, right? Okay, and then if I wanted to even give them more guidance here, I could go like 1, 2, and 3, right? And I probably want to try this myself before I just assign it, and then they're like, oh, I can't fit all that there, right? So if I just assign this now to students, they would be able to click around and mess all this up. So let me show you a trick on that. I'm actually going to take a screenshot of that slide I just made. All right, so here I go. Screenshot that. I'm going to copy. I'm going to copy it. I don't know if it's going to help me to copy it. I'm going to set my background and I'm going to add in an image. I don't actually think I need to copy it here. And I need to go find that image. So I'm on a Chromebook, so that image should be in my Google Drive, and it should be my most recent thing that I just did. Loading. There it is. Perfect. All right, so now it's back there, so I'm actually going to erase everything I just made. And if you notice, now you can't do anything to my background, right? So now I probably should have actually done it on this slide, because now I'm going to have to bring all these over, which is, again, kind of a pain, right? I guess I could just go in here and I could set the background, and I could do it right here. Cool. So now my kids could go in here and show me, there's one example. You get the point, right? So there's a quick nitty-gritty way to use that set background. Then they're not going to manipulate that. They're just going to drag these around. So pretty cool use. Next one's going to be a problem I use with ELs. I used to teach Sheltered Algebra 1 and another junior level course, so I've got a big heart for ELs. So I probably wouldn't add like a bunch of text to explain it. It just says add your sticky note to the corner to the animal and explain why. That's horrible grammar, Jason. So which one doesn't belong if you don't know this prompt? It's actually all 4 things don't belong for different reasons. So what you do is you think of 4 characteristics. So I created this one on my own. I thought of 4 characteristics, and each one of those animals fits 3 of the 4 characteristics. So depending on what you're thinking about, one of those doesn't belong. For example, the lizard doesn't belong because it is green. Alligator doesn't belong because it starts with a vowel. It's the only one that does not start with a consonant. Duck doesn't belong because it is not a reptile. Snake doesn't belong maybe because it doesn't have legs. I don't know. Usually you can think of more than one example too, but that's how you create it, right? So I created that little visual in Google Drawings, and then I just saved it as an image and I brought it over, right? And then all I did to make that background so it looked like there were places to put your sticky notes was I just made a bunch of squares. You can see that, right? And if I wanted to, I made this actually before they had that set background feature, so I would actually screenshot that, set it as the background so they couldn't drag those around. But all I'm asking the students to do, I'm not asking them to click anywhere in here, right? I'm asking them to take a sticky note. They can put it whatever color they want. I would ask them to put their name on it. I should have put that on the directions, and then a quick explanation, right? So Jason legs, boom, done, right? And then they just drag that over here, And, whatever. Some kids going to make it that big because that's how kids are. It's fun, man. That's why teaching is so fun. That's why I miss teaching kids. Like, that kind of stuff is hilarious. Annoying, but also hilarious, right? Like, it's funny. All right, so then you teach them resize it, dude. Come on. All right, and then they throw it up there, and then, you see if kids get more creative. And, they're going to piggyback on each other. That's fine, It's cool. It's no worries. If you want to, you can assign it to each kid or – but I usually just share this. I would just share this document with the whole class. We'd all be looking at the exact same document, and it would be chaos for a minute. And I kind of love that, right? And then we can have some really great discourse about what does it mean to be a reptile, or what is a consonant? Like, how can we tell here, or why are these dots here, right? Like, what does that actually mean? Like, phonetically. So there's a lot of nuance to which one doesn't belong problem. Unfortunately, I have a good bank of math. Which one doesn't belong? WODB.ca. It's a Canadian site. Has a huge arsenal of those types of problems. So I tried to create one that wasn't directly math related. But there's an example where I would have all the students on one Jamboard. Okay, this one, same thing. I'd have all the students working on one Jamboard. I actually pulled a picture from when I taught. We used to do these histograms where kids would take their little dots, around the room. Man, how fun is that stuff? That now you can't even do that. That's crazy. But we'll get back to that, right? Like, eventually the pandemic will end. I don't think it'll last for the duration of our lifetimes, and we'll be able to put dots back onto poster paper again, right? So this one, I don't even have any directions. I could direct them, right? But if I'm working with them in small group, or maybe I give them a direction sheet and they work off of it and they just go to the Jamboard and answer the questions, right? It's hard to get all the information on Jamboard because there's just not that much there, right? So you don't want to clutter the slide and make it hard to deal with. So maybe the directions on another doc make more sense, or maybe I just sneak it in right there in small text, right? But my question would be, what surprises you? And just drag a circle to something that surprises you, right? So I'm surprised that somebody has a foot that is 6 inches long, right? I could also be surprised that so many people thought 60 degrees is the ideal temperature. So this gives people a little bit of freedom. If you create the circles ahead of time, it makes it even easier, right? You could do this as a free-for-all, or you could set up multiple questions for kids to answer, and you could share it and make a copy for each one. Here's just a different example of 5 different things, and I would want you to circle the one that you most relate to, right? So learn how to use this tool a little bit, maybe make it more of an oval. Somebody's going to figure out they can change the color. And then look, you see how that snuck behind there? That used to be a problem, but now I can just bring the front. So there's a few controls you got to learn, but not very many, right? So that's actually not me. I think I'm probably more like a British person. Everything's just fine. Yeah, it's fine. That's good. All right. Another example of dragging things around. Again, this would be like an individual student assigned to this. So each one would have their own copy, which you can do in Google Classroom, right? So I just put some numbers out. So if you see 1 is the white, where can you find these other numbers, right? So, and they can just drag them over. So that's it. I mean, it's pretty easy, right? You could also make these little images, right? If you wanted to fancy it up a bit, but I don't really care about that. I think those look fine. Here's a Desmos activity. Again, I'm sorry, it's math, but this is an activity off of another site. And I'm like, well, I mean, that's cool. Like, this is really cool. They can drag the points in and they can write their answer. I mean, it's very cool, right? Very involved. But let's say I was already doing stuff like this, and I had this example and I wanted to Jamboard it, right? Like, I wanted to create it in Jamboard. It's not that hard. Make 2 circles, set that as the background. I already taught you that trick. Write the directions, create sticky notes, boom, drag them in, kids. You're done, right? You're done. So just think there are maybe other tasks that they could easily do in Jamboard by dragging things around. Also, if they have editing access, which is the only way they're going to be able to drag these things around, then they have the autonomy to make their own things. They can add their own text, and they can even write down stuff. I just think writing without a touchscreen is really difficult, so I try to stray away from that. But yeah, it's an option as well, right? Okay, so we're rolling right along here. Okay, here's another one. This is an example of when math teachers teach combined like terms. There's a Mad TV video, and this is how the guy orders his meal at a fast food restaurant, and then the other guy says it back like even faster, and it's incredible. Great watch, but I'll save you from the video if you don't want to see it. But this is a great way to utilize a different tool. So we've got a marker, a highlighter, and a brush here. I'm going to take the highlighter, and I'm going to start highlighting things that I need to group together, right? So I'm going to group hamburgers together, then I'm going to group pickles or just pickles with everything. So those are actually two different ones, right? So that one would be with everything, and then another one, a cheeseburger with no pickles. Okay, so you can start grouping these things together and teaching kids that this isn't the most efficient way to order this, and then combine like terms, blah, 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 do the algebra, right? But the highlighting is great. I've seen this used where you share it with a small group, so 2 or 3 kids are working at one time. Granted, the kids would have to get on at the same time, so that maybe isn't as practical when they're all at home. But you could still just share this with kids, and you could see their mind working through grouping things together and how they did it, right? And without just if you show them the highlighter and you show them all of that, they're just going to do it the exact same way as you. So I think the more exciting way is to give this to them and say, like, I need you to group this together for me. Please show your work, show how you did it, and see what happens, right? Dangerous. But yeah, I like that example of using the highlighter. And then again, with a basic skill of just creating a new frame, a kid could type out, the order right there. All right. Cool. Or you could just create that frame ahead of time, right? And say, like, type the order out here in a more efficient way. All right. This is just a quick check-in. I like the use of emojis, right? If you didn't know, when you're creating text on a Chromebook, if you just right-click, of course, it's not going to work for me right there. It just says emoji at the top, right? So that's built into a Chromebook, so then you can just throw an emoji in. It's a little bit tough to use. I think it's a little bit tough to use. It's tough to find each one, and maybe you have a trick for me to help me find them better. But I'm gonna hide that keyboard. But you could always use another site and copy emojis. But I like the use of emojis and relating to those. Right, it's an easy way to connect with kids. And the directions here. See, this was made by Aaron Roberts. All he wanted kids to do were from 0 to 3. So he's using creative way to check in with kids, just where are you at, right? It could be where are you at with life, where are you at with the work from yesterday. It could be anything, right? This is just an easy check-in slide and getting kids to respond. I've also seen slides like this where the directions will include, like, make your Post-it or make your sticky note green if you had issues with the homework. Make your sticky note yellow if you are struggling to get out of bed today, and then they put themselves wherever, and then their sticky note is another layer of kind of self-check and self-regulation. So those are the ideas I've got for you, right? So if you wanted to share your things, the last thing, once you create something beautiful, right, you can, of course, if the kids are just going to look at it, I would just change it to right here, change, and then I would just copy this link and share it in, or attach it in my Google Classroom. But let's say I'm going to jump over to my classroom real quick, and I'm going to attach it to a class. And we're going to see what that looks like. Let's say I wanted each kid to have their own copy of it, right? And I wanted them to be able to manipulate it. Well, I would go to my classwork. I'd create an assignment. You all are wizards at this. Anyways, at this point, right, I'll type in all this information. I'm going to click Add from Google Drive because that's where Jamboards live. Hopefully one of these will show up as recent because I've edited a bunch of them, right? So let's say I want to do the check-in, and I need to change this, make a copy for each student before I click Assign, right? If I try to go in after I've already assigned it and change that, it won't work, right? Now, the thing is, if I wanted one jam where everybody in the class is doing the same thing on one jam, right here I wouldn't make a copy. I would just edit. Students can edit, and then they all are editing the same file, right? So those are your options there. All right, that's my Jamboard. Google Forms will be next. Hopefully, I didn't bore you enough. Maybe you learned one new thing, and we will pick it back up.